Xbox just publicly admitted it's been spending money for over 5 years and it's been going backwards. They're not losing a little bit of ground. They haven't been plateauing. They spent over $20 billion and have watched revenue drop by nearly $500 million at the same time. At least that's what the number that Xbox CEO Asha Sharma put in a memo out to the Xbox staff, and then she published it publicly for literally everyone to read, which is kind of crazy because we've always asked for more behind the scenes background info on numbers and stuff like that. But like, I don't know if that's what a company does, publicly, if they think it's going to be fine, or I don't know. There's a lot to dig into. But, she's a brand new CEO. She's done like 100 days learning the business. She didn't really come from games. And you got to come out with a public statement saying that we've been hemorrhaging money for over half a decade, but I'm going to fix it. That's kind of crazy. But then after that memo dropped, studios like Ninja Theory and Double Fine and Compulsion Games are now in active negotiations with Microsoft, trying to spin off before they get shut down entirely. Some of these companies have shown games at the Xbox showcase like literally a week ago. None of this is normal, especially like in the game industry. It's not normal corporate restructuring or anything like that. This is very messy, and it could be one of the most consequential things that Xbox has done since it started. Is this the great video game reset? My name's HoloTide, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like down below. If you're on mobile, hype the video, subscribe if you're new to the channel. If you enjoy Halo, Marathon, all that kind of stuff, just regular gaming news, I could be your third favorite YouTuber. All right, let's get into the video. So for the past 10 years, Xbox has been running a very specific type of business. They buy studios. They've built this subscription service. Game Pass is supposed to be like the Netflix of gaming. And like all this kind of made sense on paper if you didn't look too hard, but it's never really worked out in practice, which is weird because Xbox just kept doing it anyways. Microsoft acquired ZeniMax and Activision Blizzard, and they just kept adding all these studios. And then it got to a point where it was probably too big. They didn't really have a coherent strategy for what they should actually be making. You have Bethesda and id Software and Obsidian and Coalition and Rare and Ninja Theory and on and on and on, all under the same roof. But it looks like none of them were actually getting what they needed. And Asha puts that in her memo. She says, "We are the fortunate stewards of industry-defining franchises that have enormous potential and player demand, but we have not adequately funded them to compete and win." Like, think about that. Xbox owns Halo and Fallout and Elder Scrolls and Gears of War and Doom and Forza, Minecraft, and look at that and conclude that they weren't putting enough money into the things that actually mattered. What were they spending that on? I mean, we've heard that Halo Infinite apparently cost $500 million and stuff. Like, how much more money could they have been investing? But really, they're just spreading it thin. They have a massive portfolio of all these studios, and they're landing on Game Pass where they get played for 2 weeks and then they're just kind of forgotten. And Game Pass itself has had a lot of problems recently. They've lost millions of subs over the span of a few months after there was a price hike, hurting that subscription model that Xbox had been trying to push. Now, she did lower that, but the damage was kind of already done. Gaming revenue is down, and it just looks like Xbox is in kind of a rock and a hard place. And maybe that's why they picked Asha in the first place. They don't need somebody that's like a gaming vet or something like that. She has no professional background in games at all. She came from the AI side of Microsoft. And maybe that's why they picked her. She can go into a room full of Microsoft, C-suite executives, explain why the gaming division deserves this continued investment. Who knows? But in that memo, she says, going forward, this cannot continue. And it looks like we're just going to have a huge reset of Xbox and game studios and maybe Game Pass. Now, all this comes with a cost. We talked about the spinoff of a couple of those studios. Some have been shut down already. Ninja Theory, they just announced Senua is being closed. Double Fine and Compulsion Games are in negotiations to spin off as independent companies rather than just being shut down. Bloomberg said that there's other unnamed studios at risk, and employees have been told that they could be next, that there's real concern. And like Xbox had to have known before like the showcase that they were going to shut down Ninja Theory, and they showed Senua anyways. Like, I don't know. The games were shown as like the future of Xbox at this showcase, and now they're not. It's just very weird to me. And then the head of Xbox Game Studios has also left the company, and the chief of staff also resigned. There's a lot of turnover happening right now. It's very, very suspicious. But what does this all mean? Well, it looks like Xbox is going to pivot hard to its legacy. She specifically named Halo, Fallout, Elder Scrolls. They were specifically named priorities. You know, thinking back, Fallout 4 came out in 2015, Skyrim came out in 2011. Elder Scrolls 6 was announced in 2018, and it still hasn't come out. It's like apparently in early build territory. Insane. So I think that Asha is looking at these giant gaps of time that go between these games and looks at revenue and decides that, yo, we can't take this long. We need to invest more in these franchises to get them out sooner. I'm like, I get that. And then at the showcase, she also reversed course on the multi-platform strategy. Gears of War E-Day and Clockwork Revolution are Xbox console exclusives now. Apparently, a PS5 version of Gears was already in development. It's canceled. Pretty crazy. But she wants to give people a reason to choose Xbox hardware, which I'm not going to lie. If you have the ability to spend money on a new console, I would just tell you to save money and get a PC, man. But what does this mean for Halo and Halo fans? Because Halo is kind of the poster child for everything that Xbox has done wrong in the past, couple of years, but it also looks like this is the franchise that they're going to bet on. Halo Studios rebranded, they pivoted to Unreal Engine 5, Campaign Evolved is coming out, new prequel missions to go with it, expanded co-op, gonna be on PlayStation day one. It's still crazy to me to think that that's a real thing. A Halo trailer was reportedly scheduled for the PlayStation State of Play and was pulled before broadcast. How true that is, I don't really know. It is kind of funny that the video that they showed for the Xbox Game Showcase does say that it's captured on PS5 Pro. But beyond Campaign Evolved is where things start to get interesting. We've heard reports about Halo Next, the next mainline campaign game. There's official job listings, and they name that directly. There's been a ton of leaks about a standalone live service multiplayer that's already been in development. So it looks like Halo Studios is running at least 3 projects at the same time. A remake, a new mainline game, this potential live service multiplayer game. And this is all happening in the middle of a company-wide reset. And that also doesn't mean that there aren't other studios working on Halo stuff or helping them. Campaign Evolved is like a public signal that this rebuilt studio is learning what Halo is and what's important, but it is a remake of a game from 2001. It's not an entirely new story. It's not even a proof of concept for whatever the next Halo game is. And what happens if they make, Halo 2 and Halo 3? Are they not going to be on PlayStation? I can't imagine that. But it's a big opportunity for Halo. So there's an optimistic way to look at all this and a pessimistic way to look at all of it. Xbox finally has a CEO that's like ready to go. They're changing things. The closures of these studios, they're painful, but apparently this is going to be the price of building something better on the other side. They want to make less bets on games, less mid-tier games, and make bigger ones. Halo, Fallout, Elder Scrolls. But the pessimistic side is that Xbox is closing studios that were taking creative risk. The ones that made Hi-Fi Rush and South of Midnight and Hellblade. And you get rid of these creative opportunities, and what you're left with is a company that only makes games it already knows that people will just buy. And that's kind of whack. There's also information out there that Xbox and Microsoft haven't rolled out just spinning Xbox off entirely as an independent company, like a joint venture with outside partners. That's also kind of crazy to think of. Xbox is not the same company it was a year ago. It's the era of just buying all these studios and IPs and stuff like that and letting Game Pass just kind of sort it all out is over. But what's going to replace it is still being decided. Now, there's a version of this story where it works for Halo specifically. Campaign Evolved, lands on PlayStation 5, the whole new generation discovers Master Chief, which I think is so important because Halo hasn't been making new fans in a long time. Halo Next comes out in a few years. It's got this huge budget and a singular focus that the franchise hasn't had since, Bungie kind of walked out the door. Or it could just be a dumpster fire. Campaign Evolved comes out in just a couple weeks, and it's the first real test of what Halo Studios and Xbox are setting up for in the future. How it's received, player counts, and all that money and all that jazz are going to be really telling, I think. But that's going to do it for the video, ladies and gentlemen. If you enjoyed, make sure you leave a like down below. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.